Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Look at Journal Stars Life in the Red podcast. Luke Mullin and Amie Just back with you for episode 2 of this season. It's about mid-August. Had some unseasonably cool weather.
False fall.
Yeah, in the last week or so.
Yeah, I'll take it, man. I'll take it.
Absolutely. It made for an interesting morning watching Nebraska football outside. Like, it's a little cold out here. Just glad I wore a hoodie.
I wore a beanie, and I don't regret it. It felt weird wearing one in August, but, if it's 50 degrees when I leave my house, I'm bringing a beanie.
Survive in advance.
Mm-hmm.
But week 3 for Nebraska football, this fall training camp.
Yes, training camp.
Yeah, we'll indulge you. Continuing on, as usual, and today we want to get to the offense, talking all things offense, talk the depth chart, expectations, where they need to improve, sleeper guys that we're looking to see more from, all sorts of projections here as we run through the offense. But, just looking at the last week or so of fall camp, kind of the same old was kind of what we heard, guys, is like, your body's starting to get a little beat up after a couple weeks of practice. And a couple notable things coming out Saturday, big scrimmage day. And as we walked in, Matt Rule was talking to the media afterwards. There were signs all over, closed scrimmage.
With the exception of one notable person, because who's going to tell Tom Osborne to leave? No one. That's who.
Yeah, that'd be tough.
Nope, I'm not telling him to leave. He can do.
I mean, his name is kind of on the place.
His name is on the building. Multiple buildings.
Yes.
So if he wants to watch practice, okay, let him have it. And apparently he saw some pretty poor tackling from what Tony White said this week.
Yeah, so the takeaway, I think it was on the offensive side of the ball, Matt Rule said, there were a couple turnovers in bad areas. He wasn't, going out there and saying, the turnover troubles they're still here, guys. We haven't fixed them yet. That wasn't what he was saying. He's just like, like to see better in some areas. But Tony White was certainly, as you said, he was like, tackling was not good enough, from a veteran unit, obviously. But, those two being the main takeaways. And then, obviously with it being closed down, not trying to get any, inside info out was kind of, I think, the focus for Matt Rule. But good experience, I think, to get those scrimmage days out. They'll continue with those here throughout fall camp. But as we mentioned, guys getting banged up. There were some minor things, guys being held out for a day or two of practice, but 2 more long-term injuries that we did hear. Offensive lineman Jake Peters, lower body injury. He'll be out for an extended period of time. And then cornerback Bryce Turner, broken hand. That'll obviously take him several weeks to get back from. But both those guys kind of reserves, young players who are maybe looking to push into the rotation, but not the key starters, nothing like Teddy Prohaska we saw go down last week.
Yeah, and some good-ish injury news. Bly Hill and Tristan Alvano are back on the 120. That means that they are trending in a positive direction.
Yeah, no, when we were at practice, saw Bly Hill, working out with those other corners. I was like, he's moving pretty well, but you always want to be careful with that kind of thing. So,
yes, exactly.
Yep. And that'll be key. We'll talk about it next week.
Yes.
Cornerbacks, that's a big question spot on this team with Bly Hill's injury. But today, as I said, we're talking the offense. We got into it a little bit last week. We were talking about Dylan Raiola, what we can expect from him. But let's go position by position. Of course, let's start there. Quarterback. And for all these spots, I think we need to give our best, depth chart, like how we think things are going to play out. Obviously, there's a couple weeks to go, but I think as we said last week, we're in agreement here. Raiola is going to win this job.
Yep.
And so the guys, Heinrich Haarberg is in this room, and of course, a lot of experience last year. You think he's going to be involved in this Nebraska offense, as we said last time. Danny Kaelin, Jalen Gramstead, the other guys in the room. And I guess as we go through these, final couple weeks of fall camp, getting ready for the season, how quick does Raiola need to progress if he is going to be that starter? This has got to come quick these next couple weeks.
Yeah, to go back to a point that you made earlier, I think it's Dylan 1, Heinrich 2A, Gramstead 2B. I think if they have a plan for Heinrich outside of the quarterback position, if something happens in a game, they'll throw Gramstead in to be the emergency backup, and then they would game plan for Heinrich moving forward, talking all contingencies and whatever, because those have to be in place. But I think Dylan's gonna be given a little bit of grace because he's 19, and like, but he's still gonna have to get the job done. But it's not just on him, right? Like, what's the offensive line looking like? Like, without Teddy, what's that side of the line like? Is our opposing defenses just eating up that side, and Dylan's being forced to make quick decisions that he's not ready for? Are the receivers getting open? That was a point of issue last season. So I think it is all one big mechanism that needs to work together. But yeah, I think that he needs to get things figured out pretty quickly, but it's not all on him either.
Yeah, it's a all-encompassing offensive improvements that they're seeking. And to that point as well, I think you look at what Matt Rule said a couple weeks ago. He said, we played Heinrich through the mistakes last year. And I mean, they know it's a freshman, right? There's going to be mistakes. That's part of the learning process. And I think it'll benefit him that there's really not a situation if Nebraska does put Dylan Raiola out there from day one. He doesn't need to be like looking over his shoulder, like, hey, are they going to bench me? Like, is there somebody going to come in? I mean, like, if he's the guy, he's the guy. So I think that is going to be an advantage to him in this situation. And of course, we continue to see bits and pieces of practice, but these quarterbacks, they got him moving quick. Glenn Thomas, I really like what I've seen from him, the way that he works with those guys in practice. And as we've said a couple of times, I mean, the arm talent that we see from Raiola is just stands out immediately.
Oh, yeah. There's no question in that regard. He is far and away the number one guy in the room in that regard. It's not even close.
Yep. So we'll talk a little bit more here at the end. We got some quick questions we'll get to about how we expect this offense to play out. But as we said, it takes them all. So the other skill positions, how are they going to impact this Nebraska offense? Well, running back, I mean, it was a topsy-turvy 2023, I guess you could say. The guys you thought were going to start, got injured. Anthony Grant didn't play as well as maybe people thought. Emma Johnson kind of explodes out of nowhere there at the end of the season. Well, this year, maybe this is just my perception of the room, but it seems like those three guys, Gabe Ervin, Emmett, and Ramir Johnson, it seems like they're going to find a way to use all three of those in a big role.
Yeah, I don't know why they wouldn't. But then you think, okay, do we disrupt a guy when he's in a flow?
Yeah.
I do not know what they should do with that. I'm glad that that's not the decision that I have to make. But no, I think that they all could play very, very big roles in this offense. But we just got to see how things shake out. If they want to go with a full-time guy, or if they want to rotate things up a little bit.
Yeah. Well, I think especially last year too, I was thinking this when they came in, like, the staff's been in the NFL, like, they know what a running back, committee approach looks like. And of course, I mean, if you have a guy who's a standout, you give him 20, 25 carries and, he's efficient with it, I'm sure they'd love to do that. But you have these different advantages. Like, I see Gabe Ervin, he's powerful, good on those early downs. I mean, Emma Johnson, he's like that all around, like, versatile guy who can hit some of those big runs. Ramir Johnson, really good pass catcher, shifty, elusive back too. It's just one of those things to me where I agree with you. You kind of got to go with the hot hand, maybe find some different series, different packages and work those guys in series by series.
Yeah. But yeah, I have no idea what they're going to do. And I don't think there's a wrong answer.
Yeah, absolutely. And then kind of complicating things somewhat is Dante Dowdle, Oregon transfer. And Nebraska, they're hopeful about this guy. I mean, he didn't have a lot of experience last year, so still very, raw, new to the college football game in that regard. But it was interesting. I really found it. E.J. Barthel's comments about Dowdle saying when he got here, he's just kind of like a pure power runner, using his size. And they've had to kind of like mold him into more of an all-around back, some of the other aspects of running back play. So I'll just be interested to see, like, how quick does that process unfold? Because I mean, they really like his physical gifts. It's just like, get him involved in the offense, get him up to speed with these other running backs. Like, he could be somebody down the stretch that maybe comes on a little bit.
Yeah, I agree with that. And if any of these games are blowouts, as they could be, especially early, it wouldn't surprise me if he gets involved in some late game action if Nebraska's up quite a bit.
Yeah. And I mean, as we talk about three main guys, maybe four there, the question is, well, are they going to need them? Probably, because it's a brutal position, right? I mean, guys get hurt all the time. And as we saw last year, I mean, Gabe and, Ramir going down to those season ending injuries.
In the same game.
Yep.
I'll never get over that.
Week 3, yep.
I don't know if I'll ever get over that. Like, that'll be like the one of the things that I will remember forever about last season is how many season ending injuries there were in that game alone.
Yeah, brutal week. Brutal week for Nebraska. I guess I just wonder how healthy can this room be. And I'm not saying one individual player, is more of an injury risk than the other, but it's like, okay, one guy goes down, two guys goes down, and suddenly we're having the same conversation, like, oh, where's the depth? I mean, Quentin Ives, he's one of those guys in the mix too, so we'll see how it shakes out.
I just hope this season isn't as bad as last year in that regard. I got very tired of writing, so-and-so is out for the year, so-and-so is out for the year, so-and-so is out for the year. It got really old.
Yeah, well, and for those two guys, like, you feel for him. I mean, Gabe Irvin, he was set for a huge year. He was going to be a huge part of that offense. Had to go through a long recovery. I mean, Ramir, he's a 6-year guy. Like, he's been through this process. So you just feel for him. You want a healthy year. So
yeah, he's been in college football since before COVID.
We're still working through the COVID years.
But like with him though, like if he hadn't gotten hurt any number one of those times, he'd be done by now. But it's just crazy to think about the guys that are like still on the team and they were college football players before COVID happened. That feels like it was so long ago.
Different. I mean, it's a different era of college football. In all reality,
in many ways, yes.
Absolutely. So that's the running back situation. Moving on to the wide receivers. This is a group that has underwent a very significant transformation. I think it was a key goal for the offseason. And I've got a couple different, I think, groups that maybe you can see in this wide receiver room. And the two that stand out are obviously the impact transfers, Jamal Banks, Isaiah Nair. We talked about these guys before. They're big, they're physical, they're gonna catch the football. So
yeah, they're gonna catch touchdowns, they're gonna be explosive. But that doesn't mean there isn't room for other guys to succeed too. I think you look at the defense, Nebraska's defense, obviously, and we'll get to that in a little bit, but next week. That system opens itself up for a ton of guys to have success. I don't see why the same can't be true for the offense. And that is especially true, I think, for the receivers.
Yeah, there's a lot of guys in this room that can contribute. So it's going to be, a question of dividing the playing time because the next group of wideouts, are two guys who got thrown into the mix last year, like maybe a little bit before they're ready. Jalen Lloyd, Malachi Coleman. The injuries, Nebraska needed him out there. And, we saw Lloyd pop off for some huge touchdowns. Of course, Malachi had a big one against Northwestern as well that stands out. And, for both these guys, it's going to be, I think for me, a question of, are they ready to continue that growth? Because, like last year, to be honest, it's like you get thrown in and sometimes, maybe you play free or you play worried. I mean, there's a contingency there, of ways it can go. I mean, now you're a sophomore, you got to keep developing. Like, there's no more, hey, you're a freshman, like just play through the mistakes. Like, they got to get ready to go.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I think that especially for Malachi, him missing the spring, like that is not great for his development, but it makes him even hungrier. Like I was talking to him on the sideline, just in passing at the spring game, and I'm like, how are you feeling? He was not happy that he was not playing. He's like, he's very competitive. He wanted to be out there. And so I have a feeling that that's going to carry over into the season because he wants to prove himself.
Yeah. And I think we spoke about this before too, but I mean, Lloyd, he's the big play threat in the room. I mean, we expect some big touchdowns, some fireworks out of that guy this year.
Oh, yeah, without question. He was one of two guys in the Big Ten last year with multiple touchdowns over 50 yards.
Yep. And the Nebraska coaching staff will let you know it every time they talk about him. They love it.
Well, the other one in the league. Not too shabby of a player either.
Yep. And behind those second year guys as well is kind of an interesting group as well. The veterans, maybe the unheralded guys of the room, but they're still going to catch some passes. They're going to throw some key blocks. They're going to be leaders. Isaiah Garcia Castaneda and Alex Bullock are those two guys, and very interested for both of them because IGC we saw last year, game one, he's out there. He's playing well. Boom, ACL. And then Bullock, he played the whole year. He was the most utilized wide receiver. And yet, with all the improvements, the changes Nebraska's made, it's kind of like, hey, how's this guy going to get on the field?
Yeah. I want Isaiah to have a good season. He deserves it. It took so much work for him to even get back onto the field last year, and then for it to end the way that it did. Like, if you're not rooting for that guy, you don't have a heart. And I think Alex has a ton of leadership that's going to be really valuable, especially for like knowing the culture and being a leader and all of those things. That's going to be valuable. But I don't know how much he's going to get on the field. But like I said earlier, like they've got to find a way. There's a lot of different talents on this roster, and he's one of them.
Yeah, I would figure the way that makes the most sense to me is, Nair, Banks, they need a breather, come get him in for a couple snaps, they'll find a way to make this rotation work. But what makes this even more interesting, we have all these guys here, some experience, right? The veterans. Well, how about the wild cards of the room? Janiran Bonner, former tight end, fullback, big body.
Swiss Army knife.
Yep, can do it all. Physical guy. And then you got the two freshmen that we really like, Carter Nelson, Ja'Cory Barney. Very different players, by the way.
Very different. Very different.
Yep. But
both talented athletes, though.
Yep. But I mean, Nelson, gosh, he looks the part, even as a freshman. His size, the way that he runs the routes too. And then Barney is just like a firecracker. I mean, he's electric, right?
My bold prediction: both of them have at least one touchdown this season.
Okay.
Bold. Ja'Cory's might come on special teams. Ja'Cory's will probably come on special teams.
But I will say I was ready to. I wrote about this a little bit this weekend. I want to keep the expectations for these freshmen a little bit in check, because yes, I do expect them to be part of this offense. But it's like first 3 weeks, maybe like fourth quarter, get in a little bit, a couple weeks later, like 4 or 5 snaps a game, like we're talking like Big Ten games, getting freshmen out on the field, like that's tough. That's tough to find moments to get the freshmen out there.
It is, but defenses don't know what to expect from them either.
No film,
Mind games. Mind games.
That's like, you're thinking like a coach out here.
I've been around football a long time.
Yeah. So we'll see how those guys shake out. I think certainly Nelson and Barney, like second half of the schedule, if they're able to get some playing time, develop a little bit, they could be special. Or at least come up in some big moments when they're finally out there on the field. So all those pass catchers, of course, tight ends got to be in the mix too. This is a group. I don't think we need to spend a whole lot of time on this. Thomas Fidone.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
He's good.
Yep.
And he's back. He's back in a big way. He's very valuable as kind of that underneath pass catcher for Nebraska last season. Obviously a red zone threat, very physical there at the line of scrimmage. And then Nate Borgacher, Luke Lindenmeyer, these guys will play a lot. Nebraska used a lot of 2 tight end sets last year.
Good. It's my favorite.
Yep.
It's my favorite.
I mean, there's some other young tight ends in the room, but those are the 3 we expect.
Those are the 3 that you need to pay attention to. Watch out for Thomas on crossing routes. He's good at those.
Yep. And I think he's expected to be one of the nation's top tight ends, made one of those preseason award watch lists. Obviously, he has big expectations for himself. So we'll see what we get out of Fidone this year. Again, one of those key players for the offense. But a lot more to discuss along this offensive line, how things are going to shake out, tackle the guard. No questions at center. We know Ben Scott. Ben Scotty's back, the veteran. And then, of course, at the tackles too, Turner Corcoran, Bryce Benhart, those are the expected starters. But going position by position on this O-line. Behind those tackles, I mean, we heard about Teddy Prohaska going down. This changes things a lot. because the next guys up, Gunnar Gatula, Grant Segrin, and Tyler Canuck, who could maybe play guard too, but he's in that mix at tackle. I mean, that's not that's not an experienced backups there. That's
No.
not Teddy Prohaska, who's started games for multiple seasons. Like these are freshmen and a guy in Canuck who's really not played at a major way. But Nebraska likes these guys a lot, and they seem to be moving pretty well there in practice from what we've seen from them so far.
Yeah, so one of the positions that the depth scared me going into training camp was tackle. And this is why. Um, if no one else gets hurt, I think they're fine. That's a big if.
Big if, yep.
So, yeah, Gunnar getting some first team reps in that Saturday practice that we were able to go to for the one that was for 1890. Yep. And then some first team reps in the short period of practice that we got to see. So we'll see.
Absolutely. Well, I mentioned Tyler Canuck could be there at tackle. He could be at guard too as one of those backups, which still, again, this guard rotation is what we're looking at most seriously about how it's going to shake out. And I think we have a good idea with Henry Lutovsky being out for these couple weeks with the calf injury. It's been Justin Evans. It's been Micah Mazuka. So, I mean, expect those guys. Obviously, Lutovsky, I think he should be in that mix too. He'll get some playing time this season, most certainly. But along with them, Tyler Canuck, again, he's been playing some guard too. Then there's Sam Sledge and Jason Machachak. Good. We're still working working it out, folks.
I don't know.
We're gonna keep saying that.
All I know is it's not Machachak.
Yeah. Until I can find Jason to say, how do we say this? Yes. Yeah. But I mean, so that's young guys there, Sledge and Machachak, again, redshirt freshman. And Canuck, he's a guy that Nebraska really liked his potential, wanted him to develop a little bit physically, and he did that last year in that redshirt season. So how this guard rotation is going to play out, I mean, I'm still really interested to see the way that they divide this playing time.
Yeah, I think so too. I just, it's the name of the game in football. Guys medically retire in the case of Ethan Piper, or they're off without any more eligibility remaining, and the case of Narina Willie, and it just sucks that you lose them both at the same time.
Yeah, but if we had to make a projection, Evans and Mazuka, I don't think they're going to shake that up right away.
I think so, unless Lutovsky comes back with a fire underneath him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it just seems the most likely way that things will play out. And then again, backup center, if Ben Scott were to go down, which would be as big of a blow, as big of a blow to this offensive line as you can imagine. Justin Evans might be able to slide over, or they've been playing Sam Sledge there too, which I think maybe they would go to if you wanted to keep that guard positions consistent. So those are kind of the key guys there, and then some others in the room. You mentioned the need at tackle. Well, Jacob Hood, how does his development look this season? Can he continue to come along physically and develop as that tackle prospect that Nebraska needs him? And as well, Grant Bricks, the true freshman, how does he develop? And then Gibson Pyle, maybe more of an interior lineman. But those three guys, as we move through that season, they could be needed there in that first, second team rotation there.
Yep, without question. So better get ready.
Mm-hmm. So that's our position by position look. And as we kind of talked about, I mean, this Nebraska offense, it needed some improvements from last year. They were not good, especially when it came to throwing the ball and turning the ball over. But as we think about how this offense is going to play out, I mean, I think it's going to look different.
It's going to look significantly different.
Mm-hmm. I mean, of course, they brought in Glenn Thomas, but what I'm interested in, we saw year one, Marcus Satterfield, he was like, we're going to huddle. We're going to use the fullback. Are they using the fullback this year? Like, not really. I don't think so.
Not a ton, but he's there.
Yeah, absolutely. So what I'm curious about too, and also, they're going to adapt to the personnel. But last year, I mean, Heinrich Harburg was one of the team's best runners. I mean, he was
the team's best runner. Period.
He was probably. I should retract that. He was probably the team's best offensive play, the quarterback run. And Jeff Sims was too when he was playing.
And not dropping the ball and not getting hurt. Yes.
I mean, the quarterback run was one of Nebraska's best way to move the football last year.
That will not happen this year.
They're not going to do that to Dylan, right?
No.
Yeah.
Use his strengths. That's his arm.
Yeah. He's really good in the pocket too, as pocket passer. So that's kind of like on the mind about how are they going to, shape this offense, adjust it with those personnel changes. But something that we talked about a lot with Matt Rule, he's spoken about this as, a key goal that he wants, a positionless offense. That's something he said a lot. And, it's just that concept of skill guys, line them up wherever. Do we think Nebraska kind of achieves that goal this year, or is that maybe just kind of the foundation that they're able to lay this year?
With certain guys, I think so. I think that you can do a lot of different guys. With one of the wild cards we identified earlier with Bonner, like he can do whatever. Yeah. Put him in anywhere, he'll succeed. I think Ramir Johnson is another one of those guys. Put him anywhere, he'll succeed. Some of the other ones, obviously, blocking is, how high is that on their priority list? What does that look like for them? But yeah, no, I think for some of them, yes, but not everybody.
Yeah, I'm a little pessimistic about that. I feel like they definitely have improved. Like they have good offensive skill position guys, but about, interchanging them and, always keeping the defense guessing. I think bits and pieces, they'll be able to get there, but I don't think they're fully there yet to that positionless offense, that ideal world that they want out of this team. But
what do you mean? You don't believe in, fullback Jamal Banks?
That would be incredible. I can only imagine the confusion on UTEP's face when Banks lines up at fullback there.
I'm just making a joke.
That would be incredible. Yes, that would be
just
incredible.
Making a joke.
Yep. But I mean, with this whole offense, we kind of ran through the depth at some of these different positions, and that was something that the coaches talked about a lot, that they've added depth at all these different spots. I mean, that's coach, that's the coach speak. That's how they view the room. I mean, do we feel that the depth is significantly increased at all across the offense this year?
I think there is more depth at quarterback. I think there is more depth at wide receiver. Tight end has pretty much stayed the same. Tackle concerns me. From a depth perspective, not a talent perspective. And then, so yes, overall, yes, certain spots, not so much.
Yeah, I think so too. I think, and maybe this is not the perfect way of looking at it, but like if you took an average of Nebraska's backups last season and then like average the backups this season, I would feel more confident about this season's backups, being able to step in and deliver high level of quality play, similar to their starter compared to last year. That's how I kind of think about it. So yes, not every position, but across the board, better depth. I think we can say that about this offense. But key thing also to be considered, as we talked about injuries, well, can the quarterback position, can they stay healthy? Because if it is Raiola out there, I mean, you want all 12 games out of him. Of course, you want that out of everybody, but you can only imagine, how much that would impact the offense. So it's going to be up to Nebraska, the play calling, of course, being considerate, as we mentioned about running him and how they're going to use him like that. But the offensive line, pass protection, can they keep Raiola healthy?
I hope so. Because I don't want to write that story.
That would not be a fun one.
Yeah,
no.
Selfishly, I hope so.
Yeah.
And as long as they don't have a ton of injury issues, I like the first team offensive line.
Agreed.
But if things go like they did last year, that would concern me.
Yep. And I mean, of course, we're looking at, the tackles are obviously under a lot of siege there from pass rushers. And I mean, these guys are veterans, as veteran as it gets. Corcoran, of course, got to make sure he's back to full health. He's looked good from the bits and pieces, that we've seen so far. And then Bryce Benhart on the other side. I mean, he was dramatically improved last year. I thought, very, very solid as that season progressed. So I really have no qualms about Benhart. I think he's going to lock down that right side.
Yeah, we'll see. I wonder how much like jumbo type stuff that they're going to run, whether that's with a sixth offensive lineman or with a guy like Borkacher or Lindenmeyer. I'm just curious is all how those formations are going to look and how often they're going to use them.
Yeah. See a lot more. I wonder how many, 3 wide receiver, 4 wide receiver. We'll see because they could get creative with it. They could definitely get creative.
I kind of want to see a 5 wide situation, but
Let's do it. Let's
I
go
don't,
empty.
but I don't know.
Yeah, they might keep Fedoni in there, let him chip off the edge a little something. Yeah. We're brainstorming. I hope the coaching staff is listening to this.
Rolling their eyes at me. Amie, you're an idiot. Yes, I'm sure that's what they'd
They're
be
like,
saying.
you guys have got it all figured out. What do we even have jobs for?
No, definitely
No,
not.
they're more sophisticated discussions going on there. But for us, we get these questions to deal with, and the last one to talk about today, outside of the quarterback position, who is the most impactful player on the offense?
Who do I go super? Yeah, I'm gonna go super niche. Ben Scott.
I thought we might end up here.
Well,
Yep.
if he gets hurt, that would be catastrophic. As I said earlier, like word for word in this pod. So yeah, I think that he is a key to a lot of their success. I think that the turnover issues from last year, they start there. Like center, quarterback, like there were some of those issues last year. Handoffs were another issue, which is not related to Ben. But yeah, I think, I know that's like a weird answer, but that's how I feel.
Don't worry, people in Nebraska appreciate good offensive line play, and especially that center position. Like, you need a reliable guy. Like, if you're getting overrun in the interior, you're not going to be a very good football team. And Scott, he moves the defense. He does what he needs to. Very good veteran player. I'm going to go different. I'm going to say Jamal Banks.
Shocking. Yep. That you're not going to go with an offensive lineman. I'm shocked.
I'm going to go with the big impact transfer wide receiver, the guy who you can expect to get peppered with targets, to be shadowed by opposing cornerbacks. Like, to me, he's going to be the guy that opponents game plan, and they're like, if we stop this guy, you might be able to stop the Nebraska offense. And maybe it doesn't shake out that way. Maybe these other wide receivers, are able to keep the heat off of Banks, but I expect him to get a lot of defensive attention and a lot of targets too.
Yeah. For me, it all starts with the snap.
Yep. Starts up front. That's the truth. Well, that's what we think of the Nebraska offense. Again, thinking improvements for this year. Next week, we'll talk defense, how that veteran heavy unit can keep up their great play from 2023, how they can improve. And of course, after that, season's almost on us, almost here.
I'm not ready.
We'll get there. But of course, appreciate all of you listeners and you viewers for sticking with us for this week. That'll do it for this episode of the Life in the Red podcast. We'll see you next time.